ॐ लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम्।
Okay, good morning again. So let's continue our class. Hope your T2 was fine. The few observations what we made, both of us, myself and Vishwa sir, it is like, few areas you have to improve is like, one is many of your communication skill has gone down. Some of you are finding it tough to communicate what you know. That is one serious concern. Serious concern. Actually, you will have to work out on that. Okay. Maybe you will have to speak each other, not in your mother tongue. You will have to speak in English and try to gain back the confidence in speaking English. And second thing is your knowledge is kind of half cooked. It is not to the perfection. Okay. See, you have to attend the class seriously, and second is you will have to read the textbook, then only the knowledge will become what do you say, perfect. Otherwise it will be half cooked only. Either if you attend class it will be half knowledge you will gain, or if you read a textbook then also you will gain only half knowledge. So it is essential that you will have to do both simultaneously. Okay. So certain points which will be giving extra during the class, and certain things you will have to gain from the textbook only. So a combination of this is what expected for exams. Okay. So your Viva marks has got high weightage and your online exams has got very low weightage. So your Viva performance is what really matters for your marks. Okay. So seriously study well. Okay. And even now you have got Q 3 and final exam, so you will have to work hard now. Those have scored less so far. Okay. And we discussed traceroute and ICMB earlier. Okay. In ICMB is a protocol what it used for traceroute as well as ping. To some of you, we asked a question, what is the difference between or why traceroute is taking too much time compared to ping command, though it is contacting the same destination and showing the result. Ping it will show in one shot, whereas traceroute it keeps TTL value changing in each stage. So suppose you have 10 devices to cross to reach a destination, 10 devices to reach 10 devices to cross to reach a destination, then 10 times ICMP message will go in the case of traceroute with TTL value 1 to 10 respectively. So it will take so much time, right? It will take so much time. First reply will come from first device, second time reply will come from second device, etc. Whereas in ping, it will go with TTL value as 256 in one shot. So only once it is going to communicate. That is the basic reason that traceroute takes more time. Okay. So then this is where we stopped in the last class, I guess, IPv6. So the IPv6, IPv6 is basically to improve the number schemes. Okay, in IPv4 we know that it has got only 32 bits, and it was sufficient once upon a time. We never thought that people will buy so many computers. Actually, I mean, so many devices connected in the world. We never uh, expected somewhere in 1980s or 1990s or 1970s, 60s when IP address came into picture. That time hardly one or two computers were there in a country itself. Okay, that too a very high-fi universities who could afford it. It was didn't even there even in government sector. So when IPv4 was developed, we never expected that computer will become so common and so much affordable. See, now we are holding each one of us are holding at least three or four IP addresses. If you have two SIMs, your mobile phone itself will require two IP addresses sometimes, and you may have an iPad or tab, then you may have a laptop. So somehow each one of you are ending up in two or three IP addresses. So the IP address requirement has become so much in the world. So that is one motivation for becoming for starting IPv6 with a huge number space. Okay, and there are a few additional motivations. One is header format, which helps speed processing and forwarding, and header changes to facilitate quality of service. So these are the other requirements. We will see how it is doing all these things. Okay. IPv6 datagram, which has got a fixed length 40 byte header, and there is no fragmentation allowed. So please note this point. There is no fragmentation allowed in IPv6. Okay. IPv4 we have fragmentation possible. In IPv6, fragmentation is not possible. So if your IPv6 packet reaches a place where it requires fragmentation, then nothing doing. What it will happen is it will delete that particular packet, and it will send back an ICMP v6 message back saying that this packet cannot be sent across. And here is a header format. You have priority. So identify the priority among datagrams in flow. So if it is waiting in a queue, whether it should be given priority or not, that can be decided by using this PRI field. Then you have flow level. Identify the datagrams in same flow. Concept of flow not well defined. Okay. So this field, even I do not know where it is actually used. In fact, maybe I would need to do some more research on this particular field. And next to header is identifying which is the upper protocol used, whether it is UDP or TCP. That is that it has got values actually. I think 600 in hexadecimal for TCP. So that header value tells you which is upper layer protocol. Then you have got checksum. What are the other changes? I mean, you look at this header format, you need to memorize this actually. Okay. The source address is 128 bits and destination address is 128 bits. So it is huge in number. Okay. It is huge in number. And you know how the IP address is represented in IPv6? In IPv4, it is separated as it's a hexadecimal numbers. Sorry, it's decimal numbers up to 255, the values separated by dots. That is how in IPv4. In IPv6, it is grouped as four hexadecimal digits. Four hexadecimal digits. It's grouped as four hexadecimal digits. That is, in one group, there will be 16 bits will be there. 16 bits, they are written in hexadecimal and separated by full colon. That is how it is written, an IPv6 address. Okay, something like A, B, C, D, full colon. A, B, C, D are valid hexadecimal digits, right? And what are the changes from IPv6 v4 other than this? checksum is removed, options are removed, and ICMP v6, that's a new protocol, okay, new protocol which will support IPv6 for error reporting, etc. Okay, and how the transition is from IPv4 to IPv6. Actually speaking, somewhere in early 2013, it was supposed to migrate to IPv6 actually, and many of the providers or many of the people in the world have changed to IPv6. Okay, now the scenario is some people are still using IPv4 and some are using IPv6, so it has to be coexisting. Understood the point? So now how you can how it is possible to coexist? There are many ways. One method is tunneling. An IPv6 datagram carried as payload in IPv4 datagram. Suppose you are sending data from your IPv6 network, and on the way, there may be an IPv4 network. Say two routers you have, they are working on IPv4. Okay. In that case, your IPv6 packet itself will be put inside an IPv4. IPv4. The data part of IPv4 will be your IPv6 packet itself. That is how it is managed. Okay. So see here, the blue colored one, the entire IPv6 header fields are encapsulated into IPv4. Okay. Instead of datagram, I am using the word packet because packet is the one which is globally accepted. Though in your textbook it is mentioned as datagram. Okay, this is the scenario I was telling you. You have IPv6 network throughout at the source and destination probably. Then in between you have got an IPv4. So, okay, your IPv6 data will go from the source. It will hit an IPv4 in between. Then from IPv4, it will again start continuing to IPv6 actually. So this is how the flow is actually. Okay, there are other methods also, but only tunneling is what they discuss it in your textbook. One more very commonly known thing is dual stack. Okay, we need not have to discuss that as such. Those who are interested to learn and targeting networking companies may please look into dual stack also. Okay. Now let us move on to next another important topic, that is routing
So,
algorithms. Yeah.
so in IPv6,
Hmm.
you told that the payload of the IPv6 given will be encapsulated into IPv4,
Hmm.
but the header size of IPv6 is 40 bytes,
Hmm.
but header size in IPv4 is only of 20 bytes.
Uh,
So I think, yeah, how can this be possible, sir? If the even if the reverse is possible, that's fine, that is acceptable. But how can we fit 20 bytes into 40 bytes?
I think you didn't understand what's the concept I was trying to explain actually. You see this slide once again. I'll try to brief it once again. So here Is the slide visible now? The tunneling slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See here you have the IPv4 IPv6 data or packet coming in. This is an A is an IPv6 router, B is also an IPv6 router. So the data flows without any trouble. And in IPv6 when it comes, sorry, in B when it comes, going out through this interface will be a problem, because it is going to be, this interface is going to be an IPv4 interface. Okay, and then it has to go via an IPv4 interface, and it has to come out from an IPv4 interface, and this router onwards there is no problem. It will go out via IPv6. You understood the scenario, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, I understood.
Okay. Now what happens is, this router is a fellow who works on dual stack actually. Dual stack in the sense, it will have two routing tables. One is relevant for IPv4 and the other one is relevant to IPv6. So this router is configured to work on both the protocols. Okay, the B router. Similarly, E router also is configured to work on both these protocols, IPv4 and IPv6. So now what this router does is, the router named B, what he does is, an IPv4 data when it comes, IPv6 data when it comes, and he knows that it has to go via an IPv4 network. So what he'll do is, okay, from he will mention this as the source IP address, and this as the destination IP address probably, or there will be an IPv4 address even in this is incoming interface. So the outgoing IP address, the source IP address he'll mention as this IP address, and the destination IP address he'll mention as this IP address. Okay, so the source IP address in the IPv4 he'll mention this IP address, and destination IP he'll mention as is incoming IP address. And the entire thing, this entire thing, what he'll treat as the data for putting inside an IPv4. So this as it is, without touching, as it is, it will be placed inside IPv4 header. I'm not bothered about what is the header length in IPv4 and what is the header length in IPv6. Doesn't come in picture at all. So this will be treated as transport layer data as far as IPv4 concerns or considers. So it will be placed blindly inside an IPv4 header or IPv4 packet. Your IPv6 is encapsulated into IPv6 packet is completely encapsulated into IPv4 packet. Now it will come to this router. This router knows to where it has to be routed in order to reach is incoming IPv4 address. So finally it will reach router E. The router E also is working on dual stack. He also has configured both IPv4 and IPv6. Now his software, the operating system of router E, will de-encapsulate IPv4 data and
IPv6.
will take out IPv6 which was encapsulated there, and it will be pushed into F router and further. That's how it works.
Sir,
So,
is fragmentation allowed on these IPv4 packets, sir? Like from C to D over there?
Yes, that is possible.
But sir, like if fragmentation is allowed, the head IPv6 packet will get split, right? So the second part of it won't have the header, right?
You just think a little bit. Try to come out with a solution for your question. As you said, between A and B or between E and F, it is not possible to fragment it. But between C and D, it is possible to fragment. That's what you asked me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is possible. Tell me the reason why it is possible.
Because that's IPv4.
IPv4. Your IPv6 data, that fellows won't be able to understand that it is IPv6 data itself, right? For
Yes.
C and D considers it is just IPv4 contains some data.
Yes, sir. So
That
when from D to E, the second fragment, like the second fragment, inside the second fragment, IPv6 packet will be there, right? So that won't have the header, right?
no, it doesn't matter, no. Once it will reach there, it will reassemble. Once it reassembles, it will get the original IPv4 data completely, right?
Okay.
Then after that only it will be taking out IPv6 data from it.
Okay.
Sir, but the fragmentation, it will reassemble only at the end host, no, sir?
If it is fragmenting at C and if it is defragmenting at D, there is no problem. If the defragmentation is going beyond that, then there is a problem. It won't be permitted. It is not necessary that the end machine only has to defragment. In your textbook, it was mentioned like that, I guess.
Yes, sir.
The device, it will get defragmented. Sorry, the end device, it will get defragmented. It is not necessary in that way. Okay, now let us move on to another important topic of computer networking students, that is routing algorithm. Okay, you have got three categories here: link state, distance vector, and hierarchical routing. A link state, distance vector, and hierarchical routing. So you have got a routing algorithm. Routing algorithm will make routing table for the router. Okay. In a router, it is if you are going for dynamic routing in the sense we have done static routing already in our lab, right? Do you remember? Static routing we did in our lab. That is, you as an administrator, you will be mentioning the networks and the devices, the IP addresses, etc. Where who is connected, how to reach some IP address. You will have to mention. Okay, you will be mentioning which IP address you can reach through which interface. That is what we call a static routing. Dynamic routing means you will enable dynamic routing in a router, and that router will inform other routers about his networks. Okay, say the highlighted router here, it has got three interfaces, 1, 2, 3. It is connected to another three networks. So this router's responsibility is to inform other connected routers about his networks. Okay, his networks. Is that point fine? Then the neighbor routers will consolidate all this information and he'll pass on this information plus, say, in this case, the data, what do you say? The data will go from here to here. Okay. Now this router, what he'll do is he will add with his data and what is received. That information will be going to the next router. So that is how the dynamic routing will work. Okay. And sending this information, understanding that from that information, all this will be done by the routing algorithm basically. Okay. Routing algorithm not only prepares routing table, in addition to that, what it will do, receive updates from other networks or other routers and will send updates to other routers as well. That is what dynamic routing means. And routing protocols means. Okay. So routing protocol works based on a routing algorithm. There is a program behind any routing protocol. So that is what we call as routing algorithm. So routing algorithm determines end-to-end path through a network. Okay. Forwarding table determines local forwarding at this router. This is you may memorize these 2 points. Okay. So your network is represented as a graph. In graph theory, you would have studied how this could be written. Okay. So here it's a graph G with n nodes and e edges. Okay. N is set of routers, that is nodes. U, V, W, X, Y, Z, all these are routers, and set of links that is represented as an ordered pair. This basic things you must be knowing, I guess. Have a look. Okay, and always it is assigned, it's allocated with a cost. Okay, an edge is a path from one network to another network, or rather one router to another router, and between them there is a cost involved to travel, right? The cost is maybe in terms of distance, or it may be in terms of reliability, it may be in terms of congestion, or it may be in terms of the loss occurred so far. So, or it may be based on the bandwidth. Say between U and W in this diagram, there is a path from U to V and V to W. Okay, so the cumulative cost you can say it as 5, and the direct cost also is U and U between U and W is 5. So as far as the system concerns, both the costs are same. So what it will do is it can send 50% of packets through the direct link and 50% through UVW. Okay, that we call as load balancing. It is not necessary to be equal cost. An administrator can configure to do load balancing. That is the theory part of it. Okay. Anyway, if two costs are equal, by default it will use the same. It will use the load balancing, and based on the algorithm, it may change. For example, in this case itself, okay, if you are using only the cost, that is both these fellows have equal cost 5 only, right? Then it is equal cost path between these two routers U and W. Then it will do load balancing. But if you consider the delay also as a factor to calculate the cost, U and W there is no delay, it will directly send, only propagation delay will be there. Whereas if you bring in UVW path, in V path it has got additional processing delay, right? Additional processing delay. So now the cost is not same. In that case, it will not do load balancing. Rather, it will simply use U and W path until unless you configure to do load balancing. I hope you understood this point, what I am trying to say. It may not be there in the textbook. I'm telling this with respect to practical approach. Did you understand this point, what I said? Please read through this slide. If you didn't understand my point, that is also fine, but minimum you have to understand what is there in the textbook and slide. Okay. Now, the classification of routing algorithms. It is classified in various ways. One is it's a global or decentralized information. Another classification is static or dynamic. Already I mentioned about static and dynamic. Can you read them clearly? What is static and dynamic? In static, one will configure the routes statically. That is, an administrator has to enter it. Whereas in dynamic, it will be done with the help of routing protocols, and it will send periodic updates, and it will inform if a network is down, or if a network has come up, or if a cost is changed, etc. Okay. Cost may be calculated based on multiple parameters. That is why cost is also dynamic. Whereas in static, none of these things will come in picture. If any network is changed, you will have to manually change it. Now, what do you mean by global and decentralized? All routers have complete topology, then it is known as global topology. That is known as link state algorithms usually. Link state algorithm will prepare a tree structure of your network completely. Okay, a tree structure of your network it will be preparing. That is what we call as global protocols. Okay, an example of this is OSPF, Open Shortest Path First Algorithm, OSPF, which will maintain a link state which will be done by using a link state algorithm. The routing algorithm is link state. SPF or Dijkstra algorithm it is based on. Okay, then decentralized, he will be knowing only about the directly connected fellows, so he is not bothered beyond that. Okay, say example for this is RIP, EIGRP, etc. RIP, RIP, Routing Information Protocol, extended EIGRP, Integrated Routing Protocol. Extended Integrated Routing Protocol, EIGRP. So let us see what is link state protocol. Then we'll see distance vector. Then we'll see hierarchical routing. I hope you got some basic idea about the types of routing protocols. The first one is Dijkstra algorithm, or shortest path first algorithm. So I know that you have studied this already in second semester in data structure, second or third semester. Third semester you have studied. So I'll not discuss the algorithm basically, rather I'll tell how it is used in computer networking. Okay. So what is its speciality? It is known. What are its features? The net topology, it is known. That is, the complete structure of your network is known to everybody. That is the first key point. It will maintain a tree structure first. Okay. We call it as you may note down. We call it as link state database. It is not. It will not be there in textbook. Link state database. Okay. Next is computes least cost paths from one node to all other nodes. So every router will calculate the cost to the least cost to any network in the world. Okay, not in the world actually. There is a limited scope of working, which we call as administrative control. We have discussed that point earlier, right? Okay, anyway, we need not have to get into those details. We have some concepts called areas and all, which is not required for these topics. So what it will do is it will calculate the least cost path from one node to all other nodes. Okay, all other nodes, basically all other networks. And it is iterative. After k iterations, no least cost path to k destinations. I'll just show how Dijkstra algorithm is working. Then probably you will understand the last point. After k iterations, know the least cost path to k destination. Now the notations, it's all graphical notations. Cxy is noted as infinity if there is no link between x and y. dv is the current value of cost path from source to destination v. pv, predecessor node along path from source to v. An n dash set of nodes whose least cost path definitively known. So let us see what it is. So this is a Dijkstra algorithm what you have studied already. I'm not getting into the algorithm as of now, hoping that you know this. So this is one iteration which will show a path from V to Z actually, from node V to Z. So how the calculation is done. I'm not going to explain this as of now. Okay. You may try to study this self. If you are not able to understand, then we will discuss this later in our class. So, sorry, it is a source is given as U and destination is given as Z. So the least cost path in this is found like U to W, W to X, X to V. Where is V? U to W, W to X, X to V. X to V, there is no direct path. X to V. Then V to Y, Y to Z. Okay, we'll discuss this algorithm if you're not able to follow this as of now. So it has removed the path from U to X actually because the cost from there it's more. It has come back to U, then it has continued to W actually. Okay. Anyway, so there are plenty of examples given there. Maybe for exam also you may get to solve by using Dijkstra algorithm. Okay. I'm leaving it for you to study itself, and if you're not able to understand, we will discuss it once in the class. Okay. So Dijkstra algorithm, the complexity is, all of you know, it's order of n square. Now the advantage of shortest path first algorithm is it is maintaining the entire topology. It knows in and out of the network. Okay, so the problem is only at the beginning to make the table and to learn the network. Once it is done, it is not at all a problem. That is the advantage of link state protocols, where it has got the entire knowledge of the network. If suppose one network goes down, then absolutely not a problem. It will immediately replaces that route because a network knows or a router knows about the entire network. So it is not at all a difficult task to replace one entry. Okay, so that is the biggest advantage of Dijkstra. The problem is for the initial setup. Once it is done, then it is easy to continue. Whereas in distance vector, you don't have that option. If one network is down, then it has to recalculate from the beginning. So that problem is not there in the link state algorithm. Okay. Next is distance vector algorithm. Distance vector is calculated based on this basic equation. It is Bellman-Ford equation, Bellman-Ford algorithm. I think you have studied this Bellman-Ford also earlier, is it not? I'll ask somebody whether they have studied or not. Sitaram Krishnaraju, are you present, Sitaram?
Yes, sir.
Have you people studied Bellman-Ford algorithm in your third semester data structure?
Yes, sir. Not completely, I guess, sir, but we have gone through it, sir.
Bellman-Ford, if you have studied, it is complete study only. And you have studied algorithm analysis also, right? Another
Yes, sir,
subject?
we have studied, sir.
Okay. Then you would
So
have
we
said
have
100%.
we have done this algorithm in discrete mathematics, sir.
Okay, okay. I think in multiple places you have studied then.
Yes.
We didn't study it in data structures, sir, but in discrete mathematics we studied it there, sir.
In algorithm analysis also you have not studied?
Yes, sir, we have studied.
No, sir.
DI.
Okay. Anyway, not a problem. So let us continue. I know that you have studied this much better than the scope of our networking subject. Anyway, I don't want to get into the algorithm description at this moment, but you are expected to know this, okay? They'll for our exam also sometimes we give a scenario and we'll ask you to calculate it. Fine. So I'm skipping all this algorithm explanation basically. So distance vector algorithm's properties, it is iterative and asynchronous. Each local iteration caused by local link cost change or distance vector update message from neighbor. Okay. So in this case, what happens is, if you have a router here, say router U is there, you will send update to V and it will send update to X and it will send update to W. They all are connected. What update you will send across? What all are the networks connected to him? So when he is sending to V, say when U is sending an update to router V, he will send that network 1 is connected to me, network 5 is connected to me. The router W is connected to me with a cost of 5. That is what the message it will send to V. Similarly, to X, he will send a message saying that W is connected to me with a cost of 5. You understood this point? Now, what X will do is, what X will calculate is, okay, through U, I can reach W with a cost of 6. From U, it is 5 and plus my local cost. That is what the algorithm you have seen in the you have seen already. So now X will have a cost to W through U. And listen to me carefully. X knows that with a cost of 6, I can reach W through U. That is a point X will realize from it. But X knows that W can be reached with a cost of 3 with one link directly connected. So it will neglect the path through U. Now sometimes if X realizes that, okay, the link directly to W is down due to some reason, then what he will do is he may take the alternate path which he has studied through U. But problem is that data will not be there with X. X has to wait till U's next update. Usually these updates will be sent in every 10 seconds. That is what happens in RIP protocol. If you are using RIP routing protocol, it will send in every 10 seconds. Okay, you can change it, you can configure it. By default, it will send in every 10 seconds. Okay. Now, still X will not take path 3 to W. X will not take this path because the cost is 3. But later, some point of time, Y would have sent an update saying that W can be reached with a cost of 1 through me. Now X will calculate total cost is 2 to W. 2 to W. Okay. Now all other entries will be removed from X routing table and will enter W can be reached with a cost of 2. That is what X routing table. Have you understood this points, guys? Okay. So that is what distance vector algorithm is. Okay. The calculation example also is given very nicely here. You may go through this later. Okay. So the comparison of link state and distance vector algorithm we will see in tomorrow's class. Please read the textbook today itself. We have studied 2 important topics. You need to learn it thoroughly. If any doubts, you can ask me, or else we'll wind up today. Tomorrow's class, we'll see hierarchical routing as well. Today in the lab, you will have socket programming. Sharonan sir will be discussing that.